All right, so we'll go on. Siman Ayin. We'll finish Siman Ayin. After Siman Ayin, really what we have left is just the liver. The real halachas that are much relevant is how to deal with liver and how to roast meat without the regular procedure of Melicha. In between all of these halachas, we will have how to do Melicha of the heart, the head, the brains. We'll go through it quickly for those who want to know how to prepare those items in case you ever have a chance. So there's not that much written about them because it's not, some people don't even learn it. Ayin Aleph, Ayin Beis, but we'll go through them quickly. I don't like to do things halfway. It's good to go through everything and get an idea of what's involved. There are many concepts that are helpful in Hilchos Melicha elsewhere.
Yeah, I bought a big.
Oh, you have a big container? Yeah, okay. That's good. That's good. So,
By the way, do they ever say what?
It's called kosher salt.
But
if you look in Wikipedia or in the internet, they actually discuss the coarseness or the fineness of coffee beans that have been ground. And they actually use the term ground the consistency of kosher salt. So kosher salt apparently is a term used to describe the salt that we use to salt chicken and meat as opposed to table salt. It's a different coarseness. Yeah.
So is it coarse? Or
yeah, it is more coarse. Yeah, sure. It's more potent because of that. Yeah. All right. So we went through the first halachas in Siman Ayin that dealt with salting, of course, by mistake, not knowingly, fish with chicken and meat. Then we went on to a more serious situation involving treif meat with kosher meat. And we reviewed some of the concepts that we saw in Basar and Taaruvot about shaman and kochush, of piapua, tatoa govar, and so forth, because after all we're dealing with things that are in close proximity, touching each other. And the only difference between Melicha really and Taaruvot or Basar in some sense is that in Melicha we're strictly talking about Melicha, contact through salt. Even though Meliach is keroseach, it's not as powerful as bishul. It's not even as powerful as tzli in a sense, unless of course you involve something called shaman. Then you have the piapua, you have the tam of the iser being able to travel more than just a klipa. So obviously in this kind of situations, it would definitely pose a problem, at least some sort of problem, if by mistake those things that should not have been salted together with the kosher chick meat were salted. Just that with fish, we discussed the fact that there are scales involved sometimes, and they're helpful. Even though fish have their own tzir, it's not the exact same kind of tzir that the chicken and meat have, and therefore they're not really going to stop all that dam that's going to come out, unless it's for a very short time, perhaps. In other words, in those kind of situations, whether you have fish and chicken and meat, or whether you have treif, you do have a problem. You can have a potential problem. And therefore, just remember, these things are salted separately. The treif you don't want to have anything to do with anyway, but...
Why would you salt it to preserve it?
No, I'm saying you don't want to have anything to do with the treif. The treif should not be anywhere close...
It's edible for a Jew by being salted.
Yeah, anywhere close to the kosher meat.
Preserved.
Yeah. The only thing about treif meat, however, that perhaps I should mention now is that there is a halacha that one is not allowed to do business with treif meat. Treif food. You don't sell, a Jew does not...
Is that actually
anything.
treif?
Yeah. No, non-kosher food. A Jew should not sell non-kosher food. Why?
Eat stuff? Or
Anything. You should not have a grocery where you sell non-kosher food. You don't want to be machshil, a Jew, by selling to him non-kosher food. It's not, and there's the reason mentioned in halacha. You shouldn't come to eat it yourself. So in dealing with goyim, you don't want to sell to goyim, even though there's no being machshel. There's still the you should not come to eat. Whereas in the store, when you have Jewish customers, there would also be the concept of being machshel. Not also behana. It's not basar b'chalav. So that's not the reason. You can have hana. Therefore, you don't go and catch shark or any non-kosher fish to sell. Because you don't do business with non-kosher food.
So what you're saying is that is tameh.
Anything that's not kosher.
That's not kosher.
That's not kosher.
But that doesn't mean that you have a kosher hechsher on.
Right, that's something else.
Something that's kosher.
That could be kosher, that doesn't have a hechsher, yes. At least you should notify the individual if you have knowledge that he's Jewish, that this really does not have a neshgocha, and you're not 100% sure that it's kosher, but based on your knowledge, it's not treif. Yes, that may be possible. I wouldn't recommend that either, unless...
Let's say, for instance,
unless it's...
halab stam.
No, that's different.
Okay, but it doesn't have a kosher symbol.
Halab stam is different. But there are items that don't need a hashgacha that have been determined to be kosher, like corn tortillas. But there may be items that you may have some suffix. For example, the machinery. Okay, this is pure olive oil, but what about the machines and so forth? On that, if somebody has it in the store and does not have a hechsher, he's not committing a wrong. Because it could be that you could say, listen, even if there is some minute amount of non-kosher ingredient there, it's bottle. Should you sell it lechatchila? No, I wouldn't sell it unless I knew 99.999% that it's kosher beyond any doubt. Otherwise, why would I sell something that has any suffix whatsoever?
How do you know it's kosher without doubt unless it
Because
has
if it has an hashgacha, it has been determined, it was inspected.
But so you're not selling something without it. We're
No.
talking about selling something without
Right, that's what I'm saying. Without hashgacha means that it has been determined. Now, you are allowed to sell parrots and the like.
I mean, live.
Live parrots, yes, because these are not for consumption. So even though it's a non-kosher bird, horses and the like, if it's not for consumption, even though we just said you cannot do business with non-kosher food, this would be permissible because we're dealing with, at least in our area, where these items are not sold for consumption.
And not doing business halacha?
Yes, that's a halacha. Shuchan
Where do we
Aruch.
find that
Yeah,
halacha?
I'll show you. Now, if you're a fisherman and in your net you caught some sharks and you caught some catfish and you caught some dolphins, hopefully
By
not.
the net.
Hopefully not. Yeah, hopefully you didn't catch it. You caught non-kosher seafood. You can sell it because you caught it.
It's incidental.
It's incidental.
Kosher slaughterhouse,
Exactly.
70%.
Yeah. So in the non-kosher house, in this non-kosher slaughterhouse where you come and shecht, depending on the agreement that you have with the slaughterhouse, in some places the kosher buy only what they want, and the non-kosher that comes out non-kosher or non-glat, they say this we won't buy. If they agree to these terms, good, everybody's happy. Why should they agree? Because they can use it anyway. This is a slaughterhouse; they're going to use it. You don't want to buy it? Don't buy it. We're not Ashkenazim are not going to buy the back, right? The end or whatever you call it in English, right? The hind quarters, right? They're not going to buy it. And if the non-Jewish slaughterhouse agrees to these terms, fine. The problem is that sometimes they don't agree, and then you're stuck with half an animal and you have to sell it for less. So kosher meat becomes expensive because of all kinds of reasons. This may be one of them, besides hashgacha and so forth.
How then does unorganized shelves? I lived in the city like this once.
Yes, this
So
this exists, right?
How was
A store really should, as we said before, should not offer items that are treif. I shouldn't say shouldn't. It's not allowed to offer items that are treif. Cannot do business with items that are treif. But should not offer items that are questionable. The hashgacha is in a store where some items may be questionable, but they're not treif. Now, what about those items that are treif, like non-kosher cheese, and this organization gives nonetheless a hechsher on some of the items? It's a problem. Not everybody would. So if that's what you're talking about, why would an organization give a hechsher to a store where some of the items are not kosher midirabanan, like cheese, etc. Similar, yeah.
is it then usher products, mixed trade products?
Good question. If those treif products are only incidental, like we said before, then no. But if that's all their business is all about, it's the same thing as being an owner, whether you're part owner or whether you're full ownership. It's the same thing, whether it's a stock or not. The only difference, however, is when you own the stock, then there's no chashash that may come to eat from the macholas asur, from the isur itself. So that chashash doesn't apply here. Can you deliver non-kosher food. You're in the truck business, right? Can you deliver it? Are you doing business with the non-kosher food? No.
Basar b'challah.
Are you all right? Are you? Yeah. Are you? But you're not really having hana.
Getting paid
Yeah.
to deliver?
You're getting paid to deliver. Yeah. So that is an indirect hana from the food. You're just transporting. Transporting. It's not. There is a concept called mesayeh bidei ovrei avera. You cannot help somebody commit an avera, which is an interesting topic in itself. Can you support an establishment that sells treif food? Is mechal Shabbos? So that's a separate question in halacha. It's a little bit more complex. Is he the only one, or are there others besides him? So that's a separate idea. Here, if you're not going to say you're just transporting treif food, which is not an iser, it's not an avera, it would be mutter. There would be no problem with it, as far as I know.
Unless it's
What?
What basar b'challah is going to be true, not have the use of
Basar, you're not having direct hana from the basar
treif
b'challah.
meat has is about nevela does. No, tamid meat does.
Tamid meat.
Tamid meat.
Tamid,
Treif
like
it
pig,
does.
like pig. Treif, yes.
Yeah, really.
Treif, yes. Treif is a cow.
It's a cow.
It's a cow, yeah.
It has b'challah.
Yeah. So therefore, owning a stock in a company that purely sells the treif meat versus being the owner of a store would be slightly different too. You can make that claim. In other words, I'm not really doing it. It's not an issur d'oraisa either way. It's just that I should not be machshel someone. I should not come to do something like that. So therefore, if somebody has a stock, I don't know, some company that sells ham. So I would say this is not such a kosher business.
But it also depends how much stock.
Why? It depends how much stock you have too. If you're not the main owner, there's no. I don't think there's an issue. I don't think there would be a problem. If the ham is just one of the products that they sell, then for sure it's not a problem. See what I mean?
And very often people.
So I think it would basically be delineated along those lines.
Very often people don't share in a group of stock.
That's also
which
true.
some might be.
Right. Right. That's also true. Yeah.
But they're speaking about an issur of selling kosher.
Right.
Are you read Choshen Mishpat type?
No, Yore Deah.
Yore Deah.
Yore Deah. Yeah. Yore Deah. Sure. Yeah. It's a clear halacha. Yeah. But as I said before, it comes up that sometimes people incidentally happen to have caught an animal that's not kosher, or a fish or an animal.
Or a cow
Right.
drops dead. Farmer has a cow drops dead.
No, but,
Nevela.
yeah, but that's different. That is at least
Tahor animal.
a tahor animal. Yeah, but here we're talking about a situation where a tame animal. But you're right. In the Maisa, it would be the same. To regularly have a business of something which is not kosher, whether it's tahor or tame, would be the same. Yeah. So anyway, this is a very interesting area in halacha that, of course, is relevant for people who are in the meat business, in the kosher, in the food business, I should say. Yeah. Yeah, but this wouldn't apply to Isur Derabanan, for example. You would be able to do it with Isur Derabanan. Just with Isur Deraisa, the halacha is that you can't do it. Who may come to eat it, or for the other reasons we mentioned that sometimes the possibility of being machshel others. All right. Anyway, so in the last shir, what we did was we went through the various concepts that are familiar to us from Basar b'challah and Melicha that apply to the Basar b'challah and Taaruvot that also apply here in Melicha when treif meat is close in proximity to kosher meat, because whether you're salting it all together or whether you're salting just the treif meat alone, the treif is the one that's being salted is going to be the one that's going to be a source of trouble, as opposed to if the kosher one was the only one that was salted, it may be less of a problem. Either way, it's something that we need to avoid. And if it ever comes up, a shaila has to be asked. Were they close? Were they far away? And so forth. All right. In Seif Hey, we're going into a little bit of a different area. In some ways, we're going back. In some ways, we're introducing something new. The Mechaber says, "Yesh omri shebasar shenim lach osu lashoisot b'molchol achar plitas kotzir dahainu yud beis shois ifishechoizu boleh melachluchis dom sheolo v'shalom melach." We already know that there's a concept called Aidi de Toret lemiflet lo bola. We know that already. That's as long as the meat is emitting blood, bus mohel, whatever you want to call it. Some hold that, of course, if that is applicable in a particular case, it's helpful because it does not absorb anything coming from the outside. So I did the Torah lemiflat is one concept we learned. Another concept we learned is kiboloi kach poltoi. In the same way something is absorbed, it can eventually emit it back out. We see this by Hagala too. We see this by Libo. In other words, being machshir keli, right? You see, we understand how that functions. Then we saw in dam, we also saw a new concept called dam mishrik shorik. The blood is slippery; it can fall off and not be absorbed into the meat. All of these are important for us to keep in mind because it will help us understand why certain things are okay and why certain things are not okay. A piece of meat, as we see in Sif Hay, that has already been salted and the blood inside has already come out completely, what could go wrong now? So the Mechaber brings down several shitas that even though you've already salted it completely, be careful not to leave it with its salt after all the tzir came out for too much longer. Otherwise, what will happen is choizeru bolem melachluchis dam she'olov. Some hold that it can actually, after it was busy emitting, now all of a sudden it's going to do the opposite. It's going to actually start absorbing the little bit of blood that is on top on the surface or in the salt. So don't leave it too long with its salt. Just do hadacha, because some say it's going to be a problem. And how long do you have? Yud Beis Shois. Why Yud Beis Shois? Because even though the blood has come out earlier, maybe even after an hour, there's seer coming out for a long, long time. Up to 12 hours, according to some opinions. Yeah, seer, steadily. So as long as there's seer coming out, you don't have to worry about it. So here we have a machlokas rishonim. Who is the one that holds that it could reabsorb? The Rashba and the Ran, B'Shem Rabbeinu Yoina. Why? Because I did the Torah lemiflet that we learned about doesn't apply anymore. You don't have anything else that's going to come out. So whatever is there may come back in. Okay. The Rosh holds Yesh Matirim. Some say it's mutar lahashhoiso b'molcha afilu kama yomim, even a few days. Why? Famous Rosh. Salt. Salt only has the koach to draw out. Salt does not put back in. And besides that, any blood that's left in the salt is very little. It's not going to come out of there. The salt draws out, the Rosh says. It doesn't put it back in. Okay, that's good to know that there's such a shita. It helps us when you're analyzing a situation. What do I do? Well, we have a Rosh. Okay. What does the Mechaber say? Well, who do we follow? The Mechaber says you really should be concerned, be strict with the shita of the oisim, but the evet mutar. But the evet, it's okay. Now, we said that the Beis Yosef actually elaborates a little bit more about this. And he says that this din really depends on the Ma'aser Rashi, which we discussed earlier, Siman Samach Tes. You remember the case of Ma'aser Rashi where the piece of meat or chicken was salted, everything was done very well, thoroughly, and then it sat in a kli, right? And all of a sudden, after a while, somebody noticed there was tzir, mohil, whatever you want to call it. Anybody know? Ilan, do you know the word for mohil in English? It's not brine. Tzir is brine. Mohil would be the juices, red juices coming out. You recall? Let me know if you find the word for it. So anyway, so that was the Ma'aser Rashi where everything was done right, and the Balabosa forgot to put it in the sink, in a place where if there's anything left over, it will run. It will. How you say in English? Va escurrir. Whatever is left in it, in Spanish we say va escurrir. It's gonna drain away, I guess. You know, she forgot to put it in a place where, if there's anything left over, but it was left on a flat surface, or in a kli, where it could accumulate. That was the Ma'aser Rashi. So over there, he said it's okay. Why? that any blood that's in the melach has dried up. There are some who say that, yes, there may be some dam in the melach, it's dried up. And by that time that the melicha has done its job, remember the opinion that we mentioned several times, there are some who hold that the melach nifsa koach ha-melach. Even if there is blood, I mean, the salt is used up. It doesn't have the power to do anything anymore. So there's very little, the salt, the blood is dried, and therefore the melach, if it has koach, it cannot reabsorb it, if it does. Or you can say it doesn't even have koach. And there's some additional information that we need to know that is very helpful, and that is why Rashi was matir it. He says the tzir that comes out after shir melicha is mohel anyway. It's not blood. So for a variety of reasons, remember we said that this is not a big deal. Obviously the mechaber and remote take it apart. There are some chumras, but that was the ikar adin. If you hold like that for those explanations, there's no issue. So the Beis Yosef here is saying that this whole machlokes in reality depends on that incident of Ma'aser Rashi. Here there's no Ramah. Over there is a Ramah that it's also kedei klipa. Why? Well, over there we're talking clearly about a kli she'eino menukav. It's sitting in a kli she'eino menukav. Here it's talking about a piece of meat that just sat on the same place with the blood or the tzir going wherever it's going. So you don't have it accumulating here. So you don't need a Ramah to say, oh, you need a klipa. Over there it's sitting, right? And besides, over there in the Ma'aser Rashi, there was actually tzir that accumulated. Here there's no tzir accumulated. We're just saying we're concerned about the dam in the melach going in. So there is a little bit of a difference between that case and this case. In the case of... Where did you look it up? The sap? I thought you were going to look at the notes that they had on there.
Oh.
They may have a better term than that. Because if you're looking at Google Translate, it's not necessarily the Lashon Kodesh mohel, it's the modern Hebrew mohel that comes out from the mohel of a tree. It would be the sap, but I don't think you'd call it the sap. I don't think meat has sap. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the reason why the Ramah over there in that case, Asher Dekede Klipa. So we had a question with the Shach. The Shach had a question from the next Seif, which we'll cover now. And that was that from Seif Vav, we're going to see that we're not soymech on the svar of Dam Mishrik Shorik. In the case of meat that is sitting next to another meat that has not been salted yet, that is sitting next to meat that is being salted, there are some more machmir. It's absorbing blood. And you were not just going to say Dam Mishrik Shorik. Or in the case of meat that already was salted, it's completely empty of blood, and you just laid it down next to meat that now is being salted. We're going to see that lechatchila there are opinions who say it's going to be a problem. You don't put it there, and over there we're not semich on the Dam Mishrik Shorik over there. So here, Basar shenimlach oso la'ashoyso b'molcho le'achar plitas kol tziroi. The reason why we would be mati here is different. Because here you have additional tzirufim. I think that's what he's going to say here. Here I think he says that we're mitzaref the svara of the heter of Rashi, that the lachluch is in the blood. Remember here we have a case of meat that still has the salt and perhaps still has some blood. So here you can say, well, even though it may not drip off, the little bit that's in the salt may have dried, or it's mohel be'almo, posak koyach hamelach. So in a situation where all you have, the only issue is this meat has been salted and still has the salt after 12 hours, b'di'evet mutar. Even though we're going to see in the next seif, we're somewhat concerned where the meat is done with, it's emitting blood, and now it's receiving blood from another source. That is a little bit of a different case altogether than this case where it's only one piece of meat that has its own salt with maybe a little bit of blood in the salt that has been dried, and the only question is that salt going to reintroduce? So in other words, why are we saying mishrik shorik, or why are we being more lenient here? Because it's in a kli menukav, right? It's I mean, we don't have the problem of Klishe Ino Menukov, and we have the Tzirufim of Rashi. That's pretty much what the Shach says, that Seif Hey is easier to deal with than Seif Vav. So we're going to go into Seif Vav in a moment, but I just wanted to make this point clear. Seif Hey, even though the Mechaber were machmir not to let it sit so long, why would somebody let it sit so long? Because maybe he wants to preserve it. Sir, if you want to preserve this meat, then just make hadocha and resalt it. I mean, that would be the correct procedure to do. You know, yes, a lot of people salt stuff for a long time, but you have this original salt that has some blood, and according to some, this could be an issue. Rinse it out very well, like you do hadocha achreina, and then resalt it. Okay, so now we're going to go into Sivav. What did we see in the very beginning of Siman's Ayin? We saw pieces of meat being salted together. Blood is dripping everywhere, from the top to the bottom, and what did we say? No problem. Even though the one at the bottom, gomeres plitosa, maybe it finished a little earlier than the one on top, we're not concerned that choseres uboles midam elyon. Why? There's a lot of tzir coming out. As long as there's tzir coming out, then the bolas. Right? That was very clear then. You know, we don't have to concern ourselves. Blood is coming. Oh, this thing is done with. No, this tzir, don't worry about it. Okay, but Se'ivav says it a little bit differently. By the way, just recall that in Se'if Aleph, the reason why we're not concerned with the blood is either like the Shach or the Taz. In other words, they both look at it differently. The Shach is the one that holds or goes along with the opinion that is either the Torah the Miflet lo bola. Very clear, tzir coming out. The Taz says, no. We hold that the reason why it's permissible is because kebolo kachpoltoi. It does come in. It will be absorbed in the bottom piece of meat. Blood comes in. Blood goes in. But you know what? As long as it's coming out, it's here, it's going to take out anything that was absorbed. So there's a little bit of a nafkamina between them sometimes. So that's basically the reasoning over there. What happens in Sivav? Let's read it first. Yesh oisrim niten boso shelo nimlach klal, או שנמלח ופול הכל דום, עם בוסו שנמלח קודם פליטוסוי דם. Some answer to put a piece of meat that was never salted. You have no place to put it. You're going to put it next to some other piece of meat that is being salted right now. Some say you can't do that. Or, neither can you put a piece of meat that has already been salted and already polat kol domoi, also next to a boso shenimlach, before it was, as it is being poilet, it's done. Why? If it's a boso shelon nimlach, any piece of meat that was not nimlach at all, or nimlach ufolat kol domoi, and it was a poilet, or it was salted and it was poilet all its dam, choser ubolea mima shechavero polet. It's a machlokes rishonim. Some say if you're salting pieces of meat next to a piece of meat that has not been salted, and you don't salt it now. I want to salt it tonight, another time. No, don't do it. Because this one is not salted, it's going to absorb. And who says you can take it out later, or it will come out? It's going to absorb. Or a piece of meat that was completely salted already a couple hours ago. All the dam and tzir came out. Don't put it next to pieces of meat that are being salted now, because it's going to be absorbed. What do others say? Some say no problem. You can do it. Why? Yes, it absorbed, but I'm going to salt it anyway later, this piece of meat that hasn't been salted yet, or the one that has been salted, I can resalt it again. Some are matir both, everything. I'll explain what that means. You have to be concerned and be careful not to do this kind of situation. So really what we have here is three shitas. One shita says you have meat that has not been salted, basar tofel, can absorb dam from a basar that's being salted right now. You have meat that was already nimlach and salted, and all the dam and sear came out. Also, can be bolea, according to this shita, the dam from the basar shenimlach. The shach adds on this particular scenario that included in this is also a piece of meat that was nimlach, polat kol domoy, all the dam came out, but it still has sear. However, he's at a disadvantage, even though he has sear, because he did hadacha chroina. Remember that talk that we had about hadacha chroina, according to some, sotmim et nikvei pleita, they will clog, they will close, they will seal the pores, I guess we can call it, of pleita. So the shach says, even though you still have the sear, the juice inside that would have ordinarily come out and would have been helpful, if you did hadacha chroina, it would be equivalent to dam and sear having come out completely, where now the meat is empty of any dam and sear, so you can absorb. Then you can't say, I did the Torah. And unless you hold like the shita that says, a second melicha could help, it would be a question. So the first shita is the ran. Melicha does not help take out blood that was absorbed from the outside. It absorbed. This one was never salted, even though you're going to salt it. No, it won't take out any blood that's coming from the outside. The second deah is the Rabbeinu Yoina in the Rashba that holds that any meat that has not been salted yet, well, when I get around to salting it, when its blood comes out, so will any blood that it absorbed from the outside. The third deah in the Shulchan Aruch, some of the Rabbeim of the Rashba, holds v'yesh matirim bechol zeh, meaning that even though it was poiletes all its dam and sear, you can still do a melicha, a second melicha to take it out. So first one holds not possible. Second one holds that a piece of meat that has not been salted yet, when it is salted, you will be able to get it out. As its own dam comes out, it will take out any other dam. And the third shita holds that even if it was spoiled all its dam, so what? It absorbed? Do a second melicha. Melicha is powerful stuff. It will take it out again. Well, that's good to know. In case it ever happens. I mean, and we saw it. You know, here and there we saw a couple examples of where melicha shnia may be necessary, a second melicha. So this is where it really is the discussion, more in depth here, the diyun, in such scenarios where pieces of meat are close to each other and one is not salted, one has been salted. And lechatchila, the Mechaber is telling us, don't do it. In other words, lechatchila yesh lochush. And keep them apart. Whether the piece of meat was never salted and you don't plan to salt it now, or it's been salted, so get it out of the way. And when he means get it out of the way, he's not telling us, you have 8 hours to get it out of the way. He means get it out of the way right away as soon as it's done. All right. What's interesting, I saw in the Beis Yosef, he brings Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam is an incredible shita. Not everybody holds like it, of course. Rabbeinu Tam says, no matter what happened, you did your melicha, the dam came out, the sear came out, and it's just sitting there, and new blood is coming, dripping on it from another basar, you don't even have to do a second melicha. You never have to worry about it. Dam mishuk shoret, he said. Blood is slippery. It just doesn't go in. It falls off. Very interesting. I wish we can examine this, if this somehow, did the blood go in or not. But anyway, we don't have to go into the length, to examine it. We hold, of course, that blood, at least some may have been absorbed, or machmer. But b'di'evet, we can be soymech on the fact that if it still has tzir, as we will see in the Ramah, that's for sure not going to be a problem. And if the tzir is gone, maybe you can do a second melicha, and that will help. And that's how we hold, at least in the b'di'evet. Now comes the long Ramah. So I'm going to go a little bit quickly through it, even though in reality we can have a whole shir just in the Ramah. What the Ramah does over here is he goes through various additional scenarios, somewhat modified in the Sif, and there's quite a few dinim that come out of this. So we'll go through it briefly. Alright, so the Mechaber Lechatchila says let's be Machmer, and like the first sheet, the B'di'evet, you could be Mekel even like the third sheet, which means Melicha Shniya, a second Melicha will help. Now let's see the Ramah. The Ramah says, "Vafilu b'di'eved nohagin le'osroi." We hold b'di'eved that it's osra. Im nofal basar shekvar polat kol domoi v'tziroi. In other words, it has no more dam and sear. It's el basar shelo shoha adayin shir melicha, next to a piece of meat that now is about to give out its blood. So vafilu b'di'eved he holds nohagin le'osroi. Remember, the meat that is falling there or is sitting there has no more dam and sear. That's why he says noagin le'osroi. But the good news is, v'yei shoimrim, that you know what? Don't think just because an hour and a half or two went by that you're out of luck, that there's no dam and sear and that's it. Oh no, we forgot the piece of meat here. It's been 2 hours since the melicha, the dam and sear, and now this piece of meat is being salted and the blood is falling all over it. What do I do now? The Ramah said, don't worry. Yesh oimer shekol me'eis le'eis le'achar shenimlach polet sear. There are some shitas who hold that you have 24 hours. Within 24 hours, there is plita of sear coming out. That's good to know. Ve'im noga tov zman ze lebasar shenimlach, if it touched within the 24 hours meat that is being salted v'lo shoh adayin shu melicha and has not yet been through the shear of melicha, in other words, the half an hour or whatever, eino nesar, there's still tzir coming out. And what? So what? Well, I did the Torah lemiflet lo bola. Don't worry about v'chen noagin. That we agree with this. Ach, but the mokom she'ein hefsed merubai. If there's no hefsed merubai, I only give you 12 hours. Yesh le'osor le'achar yud beis shoyis. After 12 hours, it better be a hefsed merubai situation. So what do we see from this? That the Ramah says that everybody pretty much is in agreement that within 12 hours, you're safe. Koydem lezeh ein lehachmer klal, he says. So he says the real chumrah is only within 12 hours. Within 12 hours, we do, pretty much everybody today at least, the achronim, agree that you're okay. Tzir is for sure coming out within 12 hours. 24 hours is a stretch. I guess if you have a big hefset, you can rely on that too. That's important to know. Why would somebody leave it there for so long? These days, I don't think it will happen. We are concerned about spoilage and so forth. But again, as we said before, it could be somebody was thinking of salting it, preserving it. But within 12 hours, you're safe. Oh, this is even better, he said. If that piece of meat that you had that was sitting next to that piece of meat being salted now has never been salted yet at all, that one I'm okay with, he says. Even if it were to fall into real tzir, ein le'osroi. Because I still will apply the din that once you salt it, it will also be maflit any dam that came out from somewhere else. The Pri Megadim here says something very interesting. The Pri Megadim tells us, you know why we're so lenient with dam that's coming out from other pieces of being absorbed perhaps, and then we're saying that we can take it out either keboilo kachpoto or aidi de torid, whichever you like, whichever you prefer. The reason why we say that here versus as opposed to the case where we had a piece of meat that was salted without hadacha. Somebody went ahead and salted a piece of meat or chicken without hadacha. That's a big problem. Remember that case in the very beginning of Melicha? There you have to concern yourself with dam ba'in. Right? We had various shitas over there as to why that's no good. Why you're in trouble if you were molech a piece of meat without hadacha rishona. But one of the main problems there was that there could be dam ba'in, and if there is dam ba'in, in other words, real dam, from the animal versus internal blood, that salt is going to absorb it inside, and you're going to say, well, wait a minute, Kebala kach baltoi, or I did the Torah lemiflet, or Melicha shnia. No. Melicha shnia won't help it necessarily. I did the Torah, there is no yet because it's not being salted yet, or whatever's coming out is not sufficient. Even if something is coming out, actually, the salt will draw something. It will not be able to block the dam bein from being. Melicha shnia will not help. All these concepts that we learned, that of Melicha shnia, I did the Torah, Kebala kach balto, does not apply to dam bein. The Pri Megadim says, you know why? Dam bein is thicker blood than dam plita. That's the difference. The physics will not work on dam bein. It's just different consistency. Thicker blood. As it came from the shechita. It's not an internal, it's not dam plita, which is more like a juice. The consistency, he says, is thinner. The inside blood of the meat is thinner compared to the dam bein that's coming from other sources of the animal, that real thick blood.
Like darker red.
Yeah, it's darker also, yeah. The Pri Megadim says that, yeah. I saw the Pri Megadim explaining, as he's going through the seed, he says, by the way, you should know the reason why here we're more lenient, as opposed to over there where we had that concern of dam being absorbed. Why don't you apply the same reasoning there? I did the Torah lemiflet lobola, kebolo kach boltoi, melicha shnia, do a second melicha, he says. Those rules don't apply to dam bein. It won't work on dam bein.
So it's not because it's already started to
No, not because of that, no.
It also comes from
if you ever look at blood, if you ever look at a piece of meat actually that's being salted, and you will see the blood. Compare that to regular blood, it does look quite different. It's more diluted. It's more between dam bein coming from the animal. I mean, it's real thick ketchup.
But dam bein also was original when it came out.
No, but if it's organs, it's veins. It's not dam internal of the meat that is sitting inside the meat that we're trying to get out from the blood vessels. Yeah, it's a different kind of blood. Now, in the human body, we do have thicker arteries and thinner. But no. You have the ancillaries. You do have blood vessels, and you have real blood. Are they different? No, sure. Yeah, it's all blood. The body has blood, but it's slightly different. Perhaps I don't know how much, but it is slightly different. Could you detect the difference? Well, it could be in the number of platelets, perhaps. Blood versus red blood cells versus white blood cells. Perhaps there would be a difference. I don't know. I did not look into it, but I think there would be a difference, because if you were to take a pancreas of a human being,
blood vessels are a vein and artery. It's the pipe through which the blood vessels.
I understand that.
Yeah, so
of course, but it has.
It contains blood. All blood flows through some vessel.
No, it's not only blood flows through the vessel. It also has the ingredients of blood, or some of the ingredients of blood. Yeah. That's the way I understand it. That all organs in the human body contain some of those ingredients that are found in blood, which is the life. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So that's my question. I'm not sure. You can look it up. Is it the exact same thing or not? If you were to dissect an organ right now, the pancreas, it would be bloody. Not necessarily because of veins and arteries containing real blood, but perhaps because of the similar ingredients that you find in the arteries are there, but in lesser amounts, or in lesser, I don't know, something. I'm not sure. Something to think about.
Next shiurim we're going to be in
something to think about. I don't know. It could be that they're different. Yeah. Yeah, you have a cut, okay, and some blood comes out. You compare that blood to some other blood that you have in the body. Maybe some of the other blood may be a little bit thicker. It's all going to be either O positive or A positive, whatever you have. It's all going to be the same. But it could be that the concentrations of different components are different. in various parts of the body.
I always find it difficult to use something, an example, to enlighten me. I don't understand that example very well.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure about the analogy.
Tzorech. That's when we say tzorech. In an animal, apparently, it's very different. You know, you see the difference. Just like in the chalev, there's two kinds of chalev. There's a forbidden chalev, which is a different color and consist to the regular fat in the animal. They're both fatty, right? But it's different. So there could be different kinds of liquids that form that some, resemble, some don't resemble blood. I don't know. Anyway, let me know if you find anything about it. So the Ramah here says, if it was never salted, we say, even if it fell into tzir mamash and also damim on yedei shiflu dam de yiflu gam ken mashe bolo mokum ha'av. Afilu nimlach basar, even if the meat was salted, velo shoha adayin shir melicha, but this piece of meat did not go through the whole hour of melicha, yet it still has blood. V'nofal etzir, yesh lehat, it's mutter, because it's still, something is still going to come out of it. As long as im lo nichbash b'soicha yom sholom, as long as it was not there for 24 hours. Some have a problem with this Ramah, because the Ramah here says Yud Yom Shalom by Tzir. We don't need a whole day to be kavush in Tzir. All you need is a few minutes, perhaps 6 minutes, and it's kavush in Tzir. Tzir is hot. Yes, that could be, but here we're talking about a situation where you're going to do second melicha, and I think the Shach explains over here. Kavush kemevushal is a different idea. Kavush kemevushal, you could say either it's 24 hours, you could say either it's 6 minutes. Legabe, something becoming usher. Yes, sear is different than water. But the point here is, what we're concerned about here is, and that's what the Ramah could say Yom Shalom still, is because can you still apply a second melicha to these circumstances? As long as, so the Ramah says, as long as it's not Kavush Yom Shalom, yes. We're not saying it's not us, that it's not usher. Of course it's usher. Of course it's a problem. The whole question is, can you do a second melicha? Can you do a melicha even though it fell into tzir and sat in it? That's the question. So I think that's a good point. What the Shach is, I think it's the Shach here. Yeah. Achim show shir melicha, but if it went through the whole melicha v'nofal tzir, well, it went through the whole melicha. Yeh shoysim oiso, of course. Some aseret afal pishlo kol azman pita tzir odayin, even though it still has tzir, but it fell into tzir. Since it fell into tzir, even though it has a little bit of tzir, what are you going to say? I did the Torah lemifle tzir, lo bora tzir? No, not necessarily. You can say I did the pola dam, lo bora tzir. But once some say im shor shir melicha v'nofar tzir shoyser afa pishelo kol azman pita tzir adayin. Migmor mikol mokom. What do we say? Letzorech hefsed godol yesh lehat gam bezeh, as long as it has tzir too. Kozman pita tzir dehainu toich yud beishoyes within the 12 hours. How? You have to resalt it. We're not going to say I did the miflet. Why? Because it's sitting in tzir. It can't. It's sitting. But if you resalt it, it's okay. Remember that? As long as there's tzir, you resalt it, it's going to come out. Well, what happens if somebody went ahead, rinsed it, cooked it, and forgot to resalt it a second time? I think the Shach talks about this. The Shach says it's okay. Behefset meruba. Some say behefset, some say behefset meruba. But lechatchila, it's clear that Ramah is saying you have to do a second melicha if it fell into tzir. V'chenim nofal etzir kodem shesho ashir melicha. Also, yedicheno v'yachzovim lecheno. Now this one is interesting. It fell into tzir before the melicha finished. Well, good. If the melicha didn't finish, it's fine. No, since it fell in, yedicheno v'yachzovim lecheno. Go ahead and rinse it and do melicha again. So the Shach asks the question, but wait a minute. I think it's the Shach. He says, I recall, I think it was from the Torah's Chatas, that the Ramah is of the opinion that if you do hadacha to a piece of meat, well, the Taz asks the question too. If you do hadacha to a piece of meat, nistamu nikveh pleta, you're sealing the pores. How are you going to do a second melicha? You're suggesting that he should rinse it off because it fell into tzir, right? Rinse it off and do a second melicha. This is, when you rinse it off, if you are of those who hold of the opinion that nistamu nikveh pleta, then why are you recommending to rinse it? Good, very good question. It appears that it's a contradiction from the Torah's Chatas and the Ramah. In one place he says you can do it, here. In the other place he says, you're sealing the pores. Then it won't help to do melicha a second time. What's the answer? The Shach says, no. The Taz is a problem, I think, but the Shach says, no. There's a big difference between hadocha, a real hadocha, and rinsing. Rinsing tzir is just to get rid of the tzir that got stuck there. We're not talking about a real hadocha. Real hadocha, yes, the Rama would say that you're in trouble. But if you didn't do a real hadocha, you just rinsed it a little bit, that's okay. If you did do melicha without hadocha, after it fell into tzir, shor b'diavad, it's mutar b'diavad. We're only talking about the Rama says about tzir that is roteach, that is very, very hot. Aval dam ba'in shenofel al basar. Remember dam ba'in that fell on meat. Shu toch shir melichasoi v'choshev keroseach, and it's very, very roseach. We already saw in Siman Tzadik Aleph the nesar basar. As we said, as I told you about the Prima Godin, the Ligabe dam ba'in lo amrinen, I did the Torah lemiflud lo bala v'lo kebolo kach poilto. If it's dam ba'in like the Prima Godin say, we don't say these rules. If anything, it does become also what falls into the tzir is only what's in the tzir. What is above the tzir is mutar. What's in the tzir becomes also right away. Now all of this is, of course, if we say it becomes also. But if you still are within the 12 hours and you still have its own tzir, you can still do a second melicha, then you don't have to worry about it. Just a second. In other words, right away. You don't say 3 minutes, okay. No, right away. One of the last halachas that the Rama brings down is an interesting scenario where meat that fell on the floor. And that's going to be a question of what do we call the floor? A kli she'eino menukov or kli menukov? I mean, technically it has a way to flow the blood. But in a way it's sitting on a surface, it may not have room to flow. So basar shenofel letoch tzir, the tzir is on the floor. Dino ki'ilu I just saw tzir bekli. The din is like if the tzir would be in a kli. What kind of a kli? So that's what the Shach goes and discusses here. That it presents a problem because the karka is a suffix if this is called a kli menukov or not, and therefore one has to be machmir. Shach says you only need a klipa. And he says it's most probably talking about a basar that fell on the karka shelosho hadayin shir melicha. The suffix is in mikra kli menukov, and therefore it's like a kli nofal etzir de alma that you can do a second melicha because either the yiflut or is it a kli she'eino menukov and you cannot do a second melicha. Nevertheless, what's mutter is what's above the tzir. All right, that's part of the suffix that he has here of what this is. Basar shenoga bechaticha shenimlocho bekli she'eino menukov. If a piece of meat touched another piece of meat that was salted in a kli she'eino menukov, which is asur, the entire piece is asur, if it was being salted in a kli she'eino menukov, and another piece of meat touched it, dino ki'ilo noga betzir. It's the same halachas as though it touched tzir. Sofek tzir, sofek maim, mutter. Let's say it fell into, you don't know if it was water or if it was tzir, but you have a sofek. What's the din? Sofek derabanan lekulu, because the tzir is a derabanan. Sveika lehakal. Tzir me'ura v'mayim, if you had tzirs mixed with water, afilu hoyu mayim mu'atim, even if you just a little bit of water, lo chashiv ve'od roteach, it's no longer roiseach, ve'eino seretz, it's no longer osur. Din kovush, we learned in Taaruvot. So obviously, all of these kind of situations would modify the halacha or would make it more lenient simply because if you have water mixed in, if it's not real tzir. I don't know about Coca-Cola, however. That's strong stuff. Yeah, the meat will completely be gone before you know it. It will.
I heard the egg in the Coca-Cola dissolve.
Right. Yeah.
Would be rabbinical for a vision.
Not exempt. Yeah, not exempt
from the business.
Not exactly. I can understand hashgacha being given to a store that may have some derabbanans.
Right.
I can understand if somebody only gave it to this but not to that. I have a problem with that.
I understand that.
Yeah,
but is there strictly to biblical for?
As far as what? As far as selling, doing business?
Yes.
Yes.
So my question
Apparently,
is going to be,
yeah.
because you said cheese, for instance, rabbinical, you gave us an example.
Go on.
So my question was going to that. That would be.
Yeah, but it has to. The other situation with the issue would be a doraisa.
So that would be.
Yeah, there may be. I don't know. Depending on the circumstances, there could be some situations. Yeah, right. Yeah. Just to finish up, I did see the Shach does say earlier when the Ramos said that the Eved were aser. You know, when you have if a piece of meat fell that already no longer has dam and sear next to a piece of meat that only now is beginning to be salted, that b'di'evad it's aser, assuming that there's no sear, of course. The Shach adds a very important point that even sliya will not be permissible. You will not even be able to roast it on the fire. Don't think, and we spoke about it before, sometimes sliya does not repair the damage that's done through melicha. There are times, however, that sliya can be an option. And we will see that when we learn about sliya a little bit more in depth. We covered that a little bit here and there, but in the very beginning you have the option, you don't have to do melicha. But if you did something wrong, here for example, according to the Ikar Din, where the Ramo is machmer, and says that it would be aser because it absorbed dam, don't think that sli now can repair the damage that was done and take out the blood. Right? This kind of a situation is gone. Unless, of course, you hold like the din of the b'di'evet. And what's the din of the b'di'evet? That we're soimechan, of course, halacha is that as long as it's within the 12 hours, and we still say that there's sear coming out, then you don't have to be concerned about it. At the very least, you need to do melicha again. You know, if any, according to the Ramah, to do melicha again. And b'di'evet, even if you did not, we hold that it's okay because I did the Torah lemiflet lo bola. The only thing is that in that situation, the Ramah does require a second melicha. In other words, mi'ikar din, if you want to know what happens, even though it's within the 12 hours, he says, so I think he means that before that it wouldn't be a problem at all. Yeah, so within 24 hours is only it would be if there's a hefsid. במוקר שאין הפסד מרובה יש לאוסרוי, לאחר יודביס שויס, קודם לזה אין להחמיר כלל. Yeah. Anyway, according to the last shita, that's the last shita of the Mechar, that's what it means. That יש מתיר על ידי מליחה שימלכנו אחר כך כאז יפלוט כל דם שבולה. In other words, the piece of meat that was never salted, by the time you salt it, it's going to take out. That's not a problem. The chiddush is that even though it was salted, as long as there's sear, still the heter comes through a second melicha. Once you do a second melicha, you'll be able to get rid of any potential dam that could have been absorbed. All right, so that does it for Siman 9.